You can't blame me for the climate. I'm just one individual. What I do is just a drop in the ocean. How should we respond to such a statement? Can traditional schools of ethics provide an answer here? I think I've actually found a worthy response from a relatively unknown philosopher, but we'll get to that. If we do not change our ways, we will cause the next mass extinction on planet Earth. This beautiful planet will fade into ruin. But can we philosophically justify saving the planet? By the way, a lot of inspiration and references for this episode are drawn from this book by Peter Singer. Now, let's begin. To make this a little bit easier, let's go outside. Consider this lawn as an analogy to the planet, and let's say there's a general will that this lawn should be preserved just as it is. If I cross the lawn, I'll save a couple of extra seconds instead of going around it, and if only I cross it, the lawn will remain intact, the damage will be imperceptible. The question now is it morally okay to cross it? Let's start from an act utilitarian standpoint. According to act utilitarianism, the moral status of an action is solely dependent upon the consequences, if they are good or bad. But if only I cross the lawn, there's no negative effect whatsoever. It's only when many people cross the lawn that the negative effect occurs. But an act utilitarianist only focuses on individual actions themselves, not sets of actions by many people. Therefore, according to act utilitarianism, there really is nothing wrong with me crossing the lawn. This is equivalent to what the person in the beginning said, right? My own individual actions have no real consequences. I've already discussed in depth the problem with utilitarianism when it comes to climate change, and this seems to be yet another problem for them. But let's move on. What would a Kantian say about this matter? A big part of Kant's moral philosophy is the famous categorical imperative, and it states, "Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law." Now, let's say that you're not in a hurry or anything, but decide to cross the lawn anyway. Here, the maxim could be, cross the lawn whenever you want to. But if we elevate this maxim to a universal law, that would certainly damage the lawn, right? And as I mentioned at the beginning, there is a general will for it to be preserved as it is. So here we have a contradiction, since if you don't want to elevate the maxim to a universal law, it would be wrongful for you to commit that action, right? The same thing could be applied to the climate. Let's say that we elevate the maxim of flying around the globe whenever you want to. This maxim, as a universal law, would lead to disastrous consequences for the climate, which we don't want. Hence, it would be wrong. But then again, what if we just elevate the maxim of flying around the globe when you need to attend a climate conference? There would be no issue in universalizing this maxim, since not that many people are invited to climate conferences. And the people at the conferences will hopefully do a good job, right? But this is a very specific maxim. Can we even allow it? Because it seems that if we allow for such specific maxims, what's the problem with, let's say, the maxim of flying around the globe when you really need a vacation, or flying around the globe when it can lead to good consequences for the climate? Lead to good consequences. It seems as though if we allow for specific maxims, Kantianism collapses into utilitarianism, which, as we discussed, is insufficient to solving the climate crisis. So here we're only back at square one. But if we do not allow for specific maxims, the principle will be way too rigid. We would have to ban all of flying, which seems troublesome. But I said in the beginning of the episode that I might have found an answer here. Global warming is a modern problem, so maybe traditional ethics can't handle it. There's an interesting proposal by Christopher Kutz called the complicity principle. which states, "I am accountable for what others do when I intentionally participate in the wrong they do or the harm they cause." This principle could work as a proper answer to our annoying friend we talked about in the beginning. His actions are not just a drop in the ocean because he is accountable when he intentionally participates in the wrongdoing. I'm not an expert on Kutz' philosophy, but the principle sounds both reasonable and plausible, right? What do you think? In any case, I think that a non-consequentialist ethic is the best approach to the climate crisis. If you don't believe me, then do check out this video here.